Hello and good evening, and welcome to the District 2. How can I say it? Town Hall Summer Chat Series. And today we will be having our first of a mini series in order for us to kind of learn more about the city, learn more about what's happening in the district. And the first one is titled Breaking the Code. And this is where our code enforcement officers from the city of South Fulton will be talking with our residents and letting them know the difference between, I guess, code enforcement, public works, and what they really work on. I know that we just recently did some sweeps in some of our newest communities and wanted to make sure that residents were equipped with the understanding and knowledge of exactly what code enforcement does and how you can avoid getting violations. So I am so excited to host this series, and I'm so excited to bring this information to the residents. So I'm glad everyone is here and joining us tonight. I first want to introduce Mr. Brian Morris, who is our code administrator. He will be the first one to let everyone know all about what's happening with code enforcement, and again, letting you know how to contact and make complaints, and also how to get those, the process and how to get those complaints resolved. So, Brian, are you going to join me on camera now? All right, there you go, Mr. Morris. How you doing today?
I am doing well. How you doing, Councilwoman Gomes?
I am excited to have you to bring this information to our residents today. So I know you have this big presentation to let us know all about code enforcement. I believe Paul Muhammad will be joining you as well. Am I correct in that?
Paul won't be here today, so I'll be shouldering the
Okay.
today. So.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm about to turn it over to you because I know the residents are, I don't know if they're excited, but I know they want to learn more about code enforcement. And we will answer questions towards the end. So if you have questions, you can type them in the chat. I know some of you all were supposed to send some of your questions ahead of time. We are still receiving some of those questions as well. So we'll definitely take some information from that. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Mr. Morris.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, again, my name is Brian Morris, and first I want to again thank Councilwoman Gums for having me and allowing me to come in and chat with the great District 2 today. I'm not sure that, as you said, I'm not sure if the residents are excited, but I'm definitely excited to be here. And, you know, I just love to talk about code enforcement. It's something that I'm very, very passionate about. And I think this is a great opportunity. The chats and what you're doing is just a great opportunity to talk to the residents and provide a better education, both for the residents and then for myself as well, and for all the departments to find out how we can better serve the community, because that's what we're here to do. So like I say, I'm excited to be here, excited to talk about what I love to do, and that is, passionate about this field of code enforcement. So with that, if we can get started with the presentation, I'll be happy to go through it. I'll try to go through as quickly as possible so that we can save enough time for questions and answers. I'm here to answer tough questions. So, don't hold back at all. Just be prepared to ask any questions that you may have, and I'll do my best to get those answers to you. And whatever I don't know, I will research it and get something back to your council members so we can make sure all your needs get addressed. So with that being said, here's our first slide. This is our District 2 Town Hall. And again, it's a great pleasure to be here in District 2. My name is Brian Morris. I'm the Code Enforcement Administrator for your city of South Fulton. What our mission is, we want to talk about what we do, what code enforcement does, because it's a gray area and a lot of people don't know. If I hadn't done this for many years, I wouldn't know myself. But our overall mission is to enhance the quality of life by promoting economic and community development through compliance and education. Now, to get this right, we depend on informed and concerned citizens such as yourself to let us know what we can do better, what you're seeing out there, and we will address them. So we want to hear about some suggestions from you, and I want you all, the audience, to just think about some suggestions that you believe will make us a better operating division. So one question I like you to consider, is a rhetorical question, but I would like some answers to give it some thought. Or what are some communities that you believe have a solid code enforcement operation that our city can emulate? And we can talk about some of the differences between our city and particular District 2 and what those cities may or may not have, and how we can bridge that gap and become more complete and more effective for you. All right, so I want to spend some time on this one. This is a very important slide because it talks about some common role confusions. So in general, I want to just oversimplify what code enforcement is. And we are the property police, right? So we are similar to your HOA, and we cover some of the same grounds that HOA covers. We police tall grass, we police abandoned vehicles, trash and debris, uh, houses that are falling apart and in disrepair. So we have a lot of commonalities with the HOA. However, one strong difference is that we do not enforce covenants and bylaws. We have over 100 different subdivisions with over 100 different codes and bylaws that each subdivision has. So what we enforce are what our mayor and council have put together in our code of laws and our ordinances. And so although there is some overlap between HOA covenants and our ordinances, we only enforce our ordinances. But we do work hand in hand with HOA, and we love the partnership with the HOA. Code and the police department is another common gray area that we get some confusion there. We work hand in hand with our police department, and one key difference is that, again, we are private property and the police enforce public property. So that will be your public streets, highways, and things of that nature. So for an example, if an abandoned vehicle is in the driveway, it becomes a code enforcement violation. And we would enforce that by giving the owner several days to comply before we issue a citation. If that same abandoned vehicle is placed in the street, it becomes that's now public property, and it becomes the authority of the police department to enforce that, and they will come out and follow their procedures and protocols in that regard. Similarly, code and public works. We also work hand in hand with police, with HOA, and with public works. However, that same line of distinction is there between public and private. So if the trash or illegal dumping is occurring on private property, meaning in your yard or in a person's yard, then code enforcement would enforce that with a notice of violation or citation. However, if that dumping took place on a major thoroughfare on the side of the street, including litter or including big boxes and things like that, which in District 2 is a common thing because you guys have so much open land and open space. It's a plus and a minus. It's beautiful, but it creates avenues and ways for public dumping. So if it's in the public area, which is roughly about 10 to 15 feet from the street to the back of the curb, that's something that Public Works will pick up. And if it's on private property, which is actually on the residence, then that is something that code enforcement will gladly enforce. Okay, so this we have many different customers in code enforcement. We're here at the behest now of District 2 Councilwoman Gums, and we're happy to come and serve in that regard. So we are responsive to each of our elected officials, and we know that we must be responsible because they are responsive to their residents. So when they get a complaint, we realize that that's a complaint that's likely generated by one or more or multiple people. So we know that that's something that we need to address quickly because it's something that's made it up to that level. We don't like for it to get to that level. We want to be proactive enough to catch it before it gets to your elected official, but sometimes we don't, and then we respond quickly in those cases. Our second set of customers are you, the residents, who we are. You are our bosses. We have 100 and I'm not sure the latest count, but I think it's probably close to 120,000 when the census comes out. We have 120,000 bosses that we are responsive to, and that is a key factor that we focus heavily on is customer service and making sure that we are responsive quickly to your needs, and we'll continue to do that to the best of our ability. And then, of course, the internal department. Code enforcement is one of those divisions or disciplines that is interconnected with almost every other department. That's from city manager's office. We deal closely with fire, police, public works, engineering, planning and zoning, animal control. We touch just about every different facet, and a lot of complaints and a lot of calls come through us first. So we're kind of like the concierge of the city in some cases, and we'll quarterback it to whoever it needs to go to. But a lot of calls come to us first, and we have great experience in dealing with all different departments within the city, and we're able to kind of get into the right place and make sure that the citizens get served. Okay, so let's talk about our process from beginning to the end. So intake, we receive complaints through See-Click Fix, field generation, which is when the officer goes out and self-generates a complaint. They see something in the community and they put a violation on it. We get emails, phone calls, and other means as well. And that's when our process starts, when we get a violation that's been brought to our attention. From there, we will go out and promptly investigate that concern, gather all the relevant evidence, and we actually build our cases. Our case files are pretty thick because we prepare as if we're going to court with every case. So we take lots of pictures, get lots of information, make sure we have the correct ownership, the correct business in some cases, and we want to make sure we have an airtight case when we go to court. So we investigate, and then hopefully at the end of the day we have compliance. Now, between step 2 and 3, it could be a quick compliance within that 5 to 6 day period that we give. We hope that that's the case, and about 75% of the time that is what happens. The other 25%, it ends up being a longer process. We have to go to municipal court or go to code board, and we have to issue fines and things of that nature. And eventually we want to get compliance, which we do eventually get compliance in almost every case. So the most active areas of concern, this is just the general, we cover, there are many thousands of violations within our book. So each officer has to, they are, in some sense, they are, they are lawyer-like, paralegals, I would say, in the fact that we have to know many different ordinances. But some of the most common are, one of the biggest ones that will be of concern to many of you are the blighted properties. And those are properties that, those are the 10% of the properties that we have a hard time getting compliance with. The owners could be deceased, they could be out of the state, out of the country, and we have a tough time in reaching them and getting them to come into compliance. Now, what we've done to counteract that, your mayor and council have given us funding for a program that allows us to eliminate these properties. So when we can't, through our regular means of operation, we can't identify the owners or they won't respond, then what council has done, and we're appreciative, is that they've given us the authority to knock down those properties. So that's what we are. We've just gone through our first 7, and we hope that we will continue that as we go along. So that's huge for the city that we, everybody does not have that. In many cases, if you're in the city of Atlanta or other cities, those properties stay blighted for years and years and years, which they have in Fulton County. But being proactive and progressive, our leadership has given us those tools to be able to fight the blight and be able to knock down some of those properties. So that's a key area. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. Parking on grass is an area that's just a nuisance. It's just an eyesore. When you go through your neighborhood, you don't want to see cars parked in the front lawn. So all cars have to be parked on a paved or an approved surface. It could be gravel, could be asphalt, could be concrete, but not grass or dirt. High grass is another one. We have just recently, within the past year, lowered our requirements to make it mandatory to cut any lawn that's over 6 inches. So again, this is, overall to keep our property values up. to keep people wanting to be in South Fulton and be proud of where they live. So keeping the grass cut, keeping cars from parking on the grass is a key component in doing that. As well, finally, trash and debris. Whether it's from illegal dumping or whether it's from people not securing the trash, having trash bags that are loose on their property. That's something that we focus heavily on as well. That can bring down a neighborhood when you have several houses that just won't do right. So that's our job is to inform them of these regulations, and hopefully we can do it through education first, education before citation. But when that education component doesn't work, then we will gladly issue a citation for those that won't comply, and eventually we hope to just coach and teach and have folks to understand the importance of keeping your neighborhoods clean. This is your investment, this is your city, and this is your property value at the end of the day that we are trying to protect. So we focus very heavily, and we see this job as very important as far as serving your community. All right, let's talk about major goals. Overall, just we want to be not just good, we want to be great. We want to be the best code enforcement division in the state, in the country, however you want to measure it. So doing town halls like this is a key component, because an educated population are is the most effective. The more you know about how your government works and how the systems work and how to get in contact with who you need to get in contact with to get things done, the better we are. So it's true when they say that the squeaky wheel gets the oil. That is absolutely true. That the more that constituents are concerned and are vocal, we don't mind it. I don't mind it at all, because it points us to the direction of where we need to spend more energy and more time into. So town hall meetings such as this, we enjoy doing. Our directors put together prior to COVID-19, we did Power of Compliance. So Director Reed put together a nice exhibition where we would gather fire, police, engineering, land development, code enforcement, all the regulatory divisions, including animal control as well. And we would just talk to different constituents. We would just move that around to different places and educate people about what it takes to get a permit, what it takes to be in compliance with signs and things of that nature. So these are things that we do as a proactive approach. So hopefully we don't have to do as much on the back end by educating first. And those are our major goals, is to spread what we do and educate and learn as well from what the needs of the communities are. Looking to the future, strategic alignment for 2021. Let's talk about what we're going to do going forward. As I said, we are one team, one mission, and this is just a few of our crew right here. We are a dedicated group that comes in and comes to work every day, and we enjoy what we do. So some of the challenges that we face, we touched briefly on. We talked about blighted properties, absentee property owners. During the last housing downturn in 08, 09, 2010, a lot of corporations came into cities like ourselves, cities like our own, or the county back then, and spent billions and billions of dollars buying up cheap real estate when the real estate was cheap. That's no longer the case now, as I'm sure most of you are aware that the prices are skyrocketing. But back in 2010, you could buy houses for $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. So that's a challenge. And many of these entities were out of state, out of the country in some cases. So it makes it difficult for us to reach some of them. And that's just a challenge that we are just trying to develop more tools, learning as we grow, and as we grow to be able to reach those folks that don't have enough respect for our city to keep their properties in order. So that's something we continue to work with, and we're making progress. Demolition and remediation, that's a part of that blighted program that I mentioned earlier that council has advocated for and approved for us to give us funding to handle those properties, because before that point, we could cite them repeatedly, which we have done, cited and put liens on the property. But for you all and for myself, I'm a resident as well of District 3. I'm right next door to you guys. But we still see the blighted property. So it doesn't matter how many times we've cited or how many thousands of dollars we put in liens on that property. What we want to see as residents is the property being remediated. We want to see the violation gone. So that funding is critical for us to be able to do that. So as we walk that process down the road a little bit further, we'll be able to see more progress as we go. That goes into getting hard properties to comply. In some cases, the owners are there, but perhaps it's a renter, perhaps it's not all renters, but perhaps it's and we have some issues with homeowners as well. But some just are not used to living in a home, or are not used to the standards that we have in the city of South Fulton. So educating them through conversation, hopefully, but citation most definitely if needed. So those are some of the challenges that we deal with in getting those to comply. Another big one, and not so much in District Two, even though there are some areas where we have elderly and indigent persons. I mean, persons that don't have the funds. So if your roof collapse, we have many residents that have been here for 30, 40 years in the county and now in the city. Um, and if your roof is in disrepair, it may cost you $10,000 to repair it. And we can have a conversation, but there's nothing that we can do to make them come up with $10,000. And so our heart goes out to people in those situations. We want to help. We partner with different organizations to try to assist and provide funding. Sometimes that funding is there, many times it's not. So in some cases, that is what we'll see when we see enforcement violations that linger and linger. Sometimes they're blighted or absentee. Sometimes they're elderly and just people that don't have the means. So we want to help and continue to try to identify funding and different tools that we can do to help those of our residents that are in that situation. And then lastly, it kind of goes hand in hand with that. We have deceased owners, people that die, what they call intestate, with no will, and it just goes to a lot of heirs. So in many cases, those heirs may not want the property, may not be in a position to take care of the property themselves. So the property sits and sits and sits for years and decades in some cases. So we're developing tools to deal with all of these challenges, but just want you all to be mindful that when you see enforcement items that linger for some time, more than likely 90+% are going to be in one of these five categories. It's not the fact that we haven't tried to enforce, so we haven't put citation enforcement actions on these properties. In almost all cases, it's going to be one of these five categories that cause that delay or cause that hardship to take place and that violation to linger. Okay, so we are a busy group. We've issued over 1,500 cases just for trash and debris alone since the city's inception, and that's just in that one category. So, like I said, we have many different categories, from junk vehicles to trash to grass to parking on grass, dilapidated structures. But just in this one category, we've had over 1,500 cases since the city's inception. Okay, so let's talk about some positive news. We've had some milestones recently. One of the things I've been here since September 2019, so I'm coming up on 2 years. And one of the things that I'm an advocate for, I think any functioning department, any functional organization has to have good SOPs. You have to have a process and a way that you do business, and it has to be documented and repeatable. So what we have focused on heavily is developing strong SOPs, the way that we do business and the way that we systematically go about enforcing our codes and ordinances. And that's something that we build on. It's a living document, and we constantly build and we constantly train all of our staff members on following these SOPs to make us more efficient. Surviving COVID-19, God willing, everybody out there is remaining safe, and hopefully we are on the tail end of the pandemic, so we can, as we're opening back up, the city's opening back up on July 7th, and hopefully, the country at large is opening back up. So code enforcement has worked nonstop. We never stopped during the pandemic. We adjusted our procedures for safety, but we were on the front line, so to speak. So we never stopped working, and we have survived, and everybody on my team and my staff is healthy. So we're prepared to get back to normalcy as we go on. Getting hard properties to comply. We've had a lot of success in just being aggressive and getting some of those properties that we mentioned before that were difficult to comply, just by applying as much pressure as possible. Threatening with that's a strong word, but we would talk very sternly to people and make sure that they are aware that they are not allowed to keep their properties in certain conditions in the city of South Fulton. And we back that up with heavy fines if they choose not to comply. And we hope that once they do get into our court system and we hit them with the heaviest thing that we can come up with, if it applies, then we will not have those problems again. So it's an education, it's a time-consuming education process, but we hope that once we go through those processes that people learn what they can and can't get away with in our city. See, click, fix is something I definitely want to harp on. If we are not using that, that is a great tool that the city has invested into. It is a 24/7 call center that will take your complaints, not just code enforcement, but public works, non-emergency police, non-emergency fire issues, just about anything. And it will get it to the proper department, proper division. And you can call that number at 1 a.m. on Christmas Eve, and somebody will answer that call. So that's a great tool, and it's a way to track and hold us accountable, as you will get a ticket number and you can follow the progress of your complaint as it progresses. So that's a critical tool. See, click, fix. We'll talk. We'll get the phone number and the app information toward the end of the slide. But I would like for everyone to please write that down. If you're not using See, click, fix, please do so. You can always contact me directly, and I'm sure a lot of you contact Councilwoman Gums directly. But See, click, fix is a great tool to be able to use, so you can get directly to the people that are on the front lines and are responsible for doing the work and hold us accountable. So last but not least, customer service. As I mentioned, that is the most important thing in my opinion. We try to acknowledge all complaints within 24 hours, if not faster. We want to make sure that we want to dispel the myth that government is slow and inefficient, and we want to dispel that myth altogether. And when you contact us or when you contact the city, we want to be very customer friendly and proactive and respond very quickly, so that you see how your tax dollars are being spent and you can be proud of how they're being spent. And okay, so here we're just going to kind of go through some of these success stories. These are some before and after pictures in District 2, and these are just a handful that we picked out. As you can see, there were quite a bit of damage to the garage door into the yard, and through compliance, we were able to get it corrected. Here's another one on Butner Road that had been sitting vacant for years and overgrown and dilapidated, and again, we applied a lot of pressure to get this one up into compliance. They ended up demolishing the structure and now getting ready to build something new. This one is also on Butner Road, had various violations dealing with the house. The pictures don't really reflect as much of what we cited for, but it was yard issues, abandoned vehicles, things of that nature, and we were able to get that corrected. This one was a very nice neighborhood, and this was a very big eyesore for that neighborhood. So it took time. It took time to get this property demolished, but as you can see, it had to go. I'm sure no one would want to live next door, across the street, or up the block from a house in this condition. So now it's been demolished, and they have a new permit, so they're building a brand new house in this great neighborhood. This is another house that was demolished. It was initially on our list to demolish through our nuisance abatement program, which we talked about earlier, but we were able to coerce the owners to get this demolished on their own, and it saved the city some funds that now we'll be able to still use those funds to demolish another property in District 2 by having the owner to demolish this on their own. So we still have those funds set aside for District 2 and we'll be hopefully demolishing that property in the next 45 days or so. All right, so that's just some of the success stories. Just wanted you all to see. Even though it takes a long time in some cases, we are working that process. So let's talk about legislative items and how we work with City Council. It's a critical partnership, because we are only as strong as the ordinances that we have. Those are like tools in our tool belt that we can use to enforce certain rules. So council is very receptive and also proactive when it comes to giving us those tools and working with us to provide ordinances that give us teeth, so to speak, to be able to enforce certain codes and certain laws. Okay, so one of those projects we mentioned before in detail, but it bears repeating, the Fight Against Blight, or the Nuisance Abatement Program. That process is for those problematic properties. We first have to identify the owner. Our legal department goes through a title search to identify all interested parties. Like I say, in many cases, they may have several heirs to that property if the owner is deceased. So it may be a grandmother that died, and now you have to go through the siblings, in some cases the grandchildren, in order to make sure that we notify everyone before we take any action that could demolish the house and hold them responsible. So from that point, we'll have a court hearing where we will present our case to the judge. And if all goes well, the judge will give us that order to demolish or to clean and close the property. So currently we have about 98 properties on that list, and we are working our way through systematically to eliminate those properties. And that makes a huge impact for the city, because those are sources of illegal dumping, criminal activity, and you name it. So that's something we're very, very excited about. Another one is our sanitation service enforcement. There is a ordinance that council passed that mandates that all South Fulton residents have trash service with one of our 9 trash providers. And the reason behind that is, what it does, it eliminates, it reduces the chance that people will illegally dump. So if we can mandate that you have trash service, that eliminates many people that will just take their trash and dump it in the nearest vacant lot or available space. So we are enforcing that. It's quite a heavy lift, because we have over 3,000 that are still non-compliant. We're working to get that number down. And that will help reduce illegal dumping that, like I say, is prevalent in District 2 because of so much open space that is in this district. And then our short-term rental enforcement is another critical piece, specifically for District 2, because of the nice homes and the upper middle class neighborhoods that you guys have. Many people take this as an opportunity to have a party house or to buy a home strictly for an Airbnb. And we strongly discourage that. So while a short-term rental license is allowable, it is tightly regulated, and they have to follow all the codes that would apply to anybody else. That means no loud parties, no trash, no loud noises, things of that nature. So it is very much tightly regulated. Currently, we have about 630 plus unregistered short-term rentals in the city. So we're working through this program to identify, notify, and then rectify these people that are in violation. Some don't know, some just willingly choose not to adhere to the codes of violation. So that's something we are actively working our way through those high numbers. Okay, so wrapping up here shortly, I think we've kind of established what we do and who we are, but we are a vital part of the city's service delivery team. Like I say, we work with police, fire, engineering, public works, planning and zoning, just about everyone in the city. And we're quality of life police as well. So I think once for any city, once the police, obviously a front line, fire department, obviously essential, but once we can assure the safety, that's the main thing that makes the community. You want to make sure the bad guys are getting locked up, and fire occurs, that we are quick to respond. So, but after you secure the safety, what comes next, in my opinion, is you want to make sure your property value, you want to make sure your quality of life is good. And that's where we come in to make sure that your surroundings are beautified and they are in good condition in a place that you are proud of. So that's our role, and we take that very seriously, and we enjoy doing what we do. All right, so here's the contact information, our mailing address. We are located on Stonewall Tail Road, close to the TAG building, the Annex building, and the old Parks and Rec building. So that's where we're located. Our phone number for C-Click Fix is 470. I'd like everybody to please write this down, 552-4311. Again, 470-552-4311. And if you're tech savvy, you can also download the app, which is C-Click Fix, SEECLICKFIX. And that app will allow you to take a picture of a violation or of an issue. That could be a pothole, that could be a stormwater damage, that could be tall grass, and it will automatically go to the correct person, and you will get a confirmation and a ticket number that you can follow. So code enforcement is a division of the CDRA, Community Development and Regulatory Affairs Department, under the direction of Mrs. Shayla Reed. She's the director, and that's where we operate. So we're in the same family with planning and zoning, engineering, and animal control, and permits. And this is just a brief org chart. We have a team of 18 at this point. We're currently hiring 2 more. And as we have just annexed in Fulton Industrial Boulevard, we are looking to add a few more, hopefully, and to give us more ability to be proactive and to serve you all the best way that we can. And that concludes what I have for you. So I'm now would like to open it up for any questions, comments, and let's see, can we address all your needs. And as I said, any tough questions, I'm here for tough questions. So trust me, we want to hear, all your concerns. Excuse me. Smyrna and Powder Springs can be pretty compliant as it relates to code enforcement. I agree. I haven't spent much time in those two cities, but I think there are good examples of good compliance. A lot of it is socioeconomics. So there are certain areas that are more affluent, and they require less enforcement because people are more invested in their homes. The ownership rate is high, and people have more disposable income. So that's a big factor when it comes to how effective the code enforcement department is, or the education and the socioeconomics of those residents. So in some areas, we have to try a little bit harder. In those areas where more renters are and there are more maybe single family incomes, we have to try a little bit harder to get compliance and educate a little bit more about what we require. The boulders that are on Merck Road for dirt bikes, I think those are meant as a deterrent. I know those power easements are a quick source for those dirt bike riders and those ATVs. So I think that was put there as a deterrent for those ATVs, so they won't have the access. Hopefully it works. Okay, next question from resident QQ. Why do we have a parking ordinance in the city of South Fulton? No parking from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m., but it's not being enforced. That is something I think you all are having a police summit coming up next. So that's something that the police department enforces, all street parking. And that is a touchy subject. I know we get a lot of those calls as well. That's something that the PD enforces. It's very difficult, but I think they'll have a good answer for you on how to best enforce that. All right, next up, I'm sorry. Do you have any details to share regarding the 2 or 3 horse farms that are within the half mile of one another? Not much, other than the one that we've gotten the most concern and complaints about, or the one at the top of Butner Road. We have worked with EPD, we worked with the land development team, worked with quite a few different organizations to get that one kind of in control. little bit more, still not nowhere near where we wanted. And we're still under litigation in that case. And it's just a very, very tough case, but we are working actively on that one. As far as the other ones, animal control handles, they may get more complaints than we would get on that. But there's nothing um, that we can really provide other on that one that's at the top of Button Road that causes a lot of heartache for the district. So we're working on that one as well. But if you have any concerns about any other ones that you see, I would encourage you to reach out to me directly or to reach out to Secretly Fix, and we can investigate that or get animal control involved. Next question. Why are there no signs anywhere within the city or residential streets, especially those streets that are not designed properly for multiple throughway traffic? I'm not sure I quite understand the question, but if we're talking about road signs, that would be a public works concern. Um, yeah, I'm not quite sure I fully understand that one, but I would address that to public works. Okay, next question is how long will it take for code enforcement or the police department to give citations to vehicles breaking this ordinance? We'd like to know which specific ordinance. If it's, as I mentioned, if it's private property, if it's a abandoned vehicle or junk vehicle on private property, then we typically give uh, 5 to 7 days to comply by putting a tag on the car, making sure the wheels are inflated, making sure that no windows are broken, things of that nature. And at that point, we go straight into citation. PD operates just a little bit differently. They have a different process, and I'm sure they can expound a little bit more on their procedures and protocols. All right. Pleasure. Next question. How long is it going to take for code enforcement? Okay, same question. Okay. All right, Miss Dana Norris from the Retreat Jones Mills has a question. Um, how can I get Mr. Morris to attend one of our quarterly HOA meetings coming up on the 30th? It's just, like I say, I love coming to talk to HOAs and town halls. So if you would just shoot me an email, I'll put my email in the chat and put it on my schedule, and I will be definitely either I or one of my supervisors will attend, and we'll be happy to come and talk and just give a quick synopsis on what we do. So we'll be happy to do it. Why can't we use cameras? Not sure I understand that question. Well, let me just say what we do have. We have code enforcement has flock cameras that we use to catch illegal dumping. We have one in each district that we do utilize, and it is somewhat successful in catching some illegal dumping. Next question is, how do you notify residents, and what do you do if they don't comply? So our notification process is that we will send notices through certified mail to the owners. We will also deliver notices to the door. So we try to make contact with the resident as well as certified mail to the property owners. And we give them typically 7 days to comply with most violations. If it's cutting the grass or something along those lines, about a week time is a good amount of time to come into compliance. If they don't, then we proceed to that next step, which leads to the next question of code board or municipal court. If it's egregious or if it's health and safety related, it will go to municipal court, where the threats of jail time and things are more stringent. If not, we'll go to code board, which is also very effective, and we handle 90% of our cases through code board. And so that process works similar to a court. And you all are welcome to come in and join at any time. I think it'd be very interesting and informative for you to attend a code board hearing and just see how that process works. So we do it every other Tuesday, and it's very, very informative when we have those hearings. Okay, next question from resident QQ. I find a lot of illegal dumping in our subdivision. If we identify who they are, why can't they be cited? Okay, so if that can be tricky. So we have and we will cite in many occasions. The great area from our solicitor is that it has to be more than just junk mail. So if it's, we want to see multiple pieces of mail with their name on it. So it can't just be to a resident, you know, how we'll get mailers with just anonymous to current resident. That won't fly in court. We like to see multiple mailings. In that case, if you get us that information, then we absolutely will do all we can to enforce that and cite those violators. All right. Another question. I missed that last question, Joy, from Resident QQ. Okay, what can we do from stopping businesses? This is a great question. Putting signs, littering our community. This is something that we is a tough one. We pride ourselves on removing these signs as quickly as possible. Many cases, we remove them and they're there the next day. It's not uncommon for one intersection to have, for 3 times in that 1 week, for a sign to be placed there. So we collect hundreds and hundreds of signs every week. Our process is that we call each and every sign and let them know there can be a fine of up to $1,000 per sign. The trouble that we have with that is that many of these people are mom and pops. It's Joe buys houses, Joe fixes houses, and they are not registered businesses. If they were registered businesses, then we could look them up through Secretary of State. We could find their address and we could go there and cite them. Most of the time, it's just a guy or a lady with a cell phone. So it's tough to really hunt them down and really enforce it. So we make a lot of tough talk to them, and it works in many cases, but it's just an ongoing battle. And I know it's frustrating for you guys. It's frustrating for us as well, but we do try our very best to eliminate those signs every single day. Okay, Shamik Branch, I'm not sure if you're able to speak specifically about specific properties for the demo program. However, there's a blighted and abandoned property on Enon Road before Wolf Creek Country Club subdivision. Okay. I'm not sure that I'm familiar with that one. I would like to ask if you could email that address to me, and I'd like to investigate and see if we have an open case. I'm pretty sure it's not on the blighted list, so I would like to add that as soon as possible. So if you would, please send that address to me, and we'll make sure we do a thorough investigation and identify the owner and put it on the blighted list. Absolutely. So that blighted list grows and grows, folks. So it started out at 40, 50, and it's grown all the way to 98 as of today. And it's going to continue to grow as we see more. We're going to add them onto the list, and we'll keep compiling that list and adding those to that blighted list. Okay, Pink House on the corner of West Stubbs and Cascade Palmetto is a party house. They frequently have trash on the roads and in the roads. What can be done about this in other party houses in the city? Okay, again, I'm not familiar with this house particularly. Let me do some research on that one and find out if it's on the party house list. Now, there is a permit for party houses. You can have a party house if your home meets certain criteria. So we will need to do some investigation and see if that does meet the criteria. But either way, even if it does, it still is accountable for all other violations. It doesn't give you the right to have loud parties that disturb the neighbors. It doesn't give you the right to put trash, on our city streets or in the yard. So we will investigate that. And again, please use SeeClickFix or email me directly with any of these concerns so we can get a case going on these particular properties. And that way you'll have to follow up. Okay, Rashard Snellings is saying that the sanitation providers that South Fulton partners with are the absolute worst. Wow. What is the city going to do to attract companies that better serve the residents? GFL Waste Industries is a horrible provider. Duly noted. That is something I think Public Works is actively working through. They provide the list of sanitation providers, and they would, I'm sure, would love to hear those concerns and be able to address how they can better select and how they can better hold those accountable that we have selected. So Public Works monitors and manages that program. Okay, next question from Ms. Phyllis Reed. How often does code enforcement come through a subdivision? Well, Ms. Reed, it depends. We try to come through as often as possible. We are a complaint-based department, primarily 75% complaint-based. Reason being is that the city is approximately 120,000. I would guesstimate because we're growing. We have 12 officers, so that gives each officer roughly 10,000 residents per officer, right? That's the size of a small city. The city that I came from, which was Fairburn, was about 13,000, and we had multiple officers. So it is a logistics issue that we would love to be more proactive. So what we ask you to do is implement See-Click Fix, and we will definitely come out and we will address all those issues. But so we get to those subdivisions as often as possible, but it's difficult for us to be 100% proactive due to the size of the area that each officer has to patrol. So we're 75% reactive. We're working our way to be more proactive, but it is a numbers game at the end of the day. One officer for 10,000 people, it stretches us pretty thin when it comes to that, but we do our best to give each neighborhood plenty of attention. So, but again, squeaky wheel gets the oil. So by all means, please utilize See-Click Fix, and that way you can track whatever complaints that you may have and hold us accountable and make sure that we're coming through on a regular basis. Okay, Pin Case 44 asks, who is responsible for cutting trees back near stop signs, etc., in communities? When driving, you can't read the street signs. Okay, great question. That falls on public works. So remember we talked about the city right of way, which is roughly 10 to 15 feet back of curb. So all of that area is cut, maintained, and kept in order by the Public Works Department, and they can ensure, as well as street signs as well. So when your street signs are down, your street signs are missing, Public Works can also address those issues and come repair as needed. So Public Works See-Click Fix is a great tool again to utilize in order to make sure that you're reporting those issues. Because we may ride by that trash or by that street sign and assume that somebody else has reported it. And we're all riding past that same pile of trash or that same street sign or that same house with tall grass. So make sure that you report that, and that way you can get an update as to what we're doing or what we're not doing in some cases. Okay.
I'm here just to help you out. Keep going.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the backup. All right, so litter bugs need to be tracked down and fines enforced. Absolutely. Um, that is That's just an area. It's very difficult to enforce. It's very difficult. Typically, those are people that just ride by. They throw their Coke cans and their bottles and their trash out the window. Public Works will come and clean those up if it's in the city right away. But it's difficult because people will come back out and do the same thing again. It's just one of those behavioral issues. It's tough to police unless you catch them in the act. Can cameras be placed for illegal dumping? They can and they are. The issue is they are very expensive. So the cameras we have right now are the same ones that police departments use, the flop cameras that you will see up. And we do have one in District 2. So it's somewhat successful, but it's just difficult to cover. District 2 is so, as well as the city is so large and so vast, it's difficult to catch every nook and cranny because that's where they dump, in those nooks and crannies. So we're working on different tools, but it's one of those uphill battles, to be quite honest.
And then we're also adding more money into the budget to help with code enforcement to add some additional cameras throughout the districts. So hopefully we'll be able to get that, just some more support as far as camera wise to get the litter bugs.
Perfect.
Trash companies need to be changed. Their costs are high and the quality of service is very low. I definitely agree with you in regards to that. The city is moving towards a single model sanitation model that should be actually coming up very soon, right before the summer. So we will be moving in that direction and bringing a one service provider onto the city. So we won't have multiple choices, but I definitely agree with that comment. What's the next question? The first notice I received was notice to appear. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes,
So no warnings. Okay.
that's Mr. Snellings. We've had, I think, so that's a more of a individual case. I think we
Okay.
discussed that in length. So be happy to take your call or your email, and we can discuss that further.
So I see a few other ones. Provide a new list of providers. They are offering recycling. There should be credits applied to weeks trash is not picked up. Again, the city has those certified vendors at this point in time. So a lot of those issues and complaints that you are having with those particular providers, you will have to address them individually. The city is actually meeting with some of these providers, especially I believe it is waste management, in regards to the level of service that some of our residents are receiving at this point in time. But again, we have that list. It's still the same list, but residents have the option right now to pick or choose which provider they want to go to at this time. What about political signs? Can you speak on that? Those that are not taken up after election.
That's
Okay.
a tough one. Well, you're welcome to jump in on that one. That is tough because we want to give access. It's a great way of advertising and running the campaign. It's tough because it's typically we don't allow any signs in the right of way, but we want to allow for candidates to make themselves known. So what we ask is that each candidate, we send out email blasts to all campaigns and ask that they remove the signs quickly within a week after the campaign. So typically that is over on that Tuesday. We ask by that Sunday that all signs be removed, and then we'll start removing it ourselves.
And that's very taxing on some of our code enforcement officers. So what a lot of the district's council people do is that they actually reach out to the campaign offices and ask that they remove their signs as well. So it's kind of like a two-pronged approach. I know we've had a couple of elections since I've been in office, and one of the things that we really do, at least I do, is call those campaign offices and ask them to pick up their signs. So I just can't deal with the signs littering up the streets. And that even includes mine. So all right, trucks are driving down forbidden streets. Can we have cameras to control this issue and tickets? Ms. Stevens, thank you for that question. We are actually trying to work within so right now in the state of Georgia, the only way that we can cite those trucks electronically is through our school zone cameras. And we've been working with our state legislators to get that done. We tried to get it done this session, but we were unsuccessful in that. So it is on the books to try to get it done again. But at this point in time, that is the best way we think that we can make sure that we start citing those trucks that actually drive through a school zone. What's the next question? Rashad, you should. Can we increase the frequency of trash pickup in public areas such as road and parking lots? Parking lots, that is actually within the business community. So I think, if there is a business district, and I don't know, Brian, if that, is the actual case, but a lot of the business districts are supposed to be working with code enforcement and with the agency to make sure that those parking lots are clean. And I do think you all go out and give warnings and advise people to clean that.
Absolutely.
Now, as far Joy, can you go back to the other question? I don't think I answered all of it. Trash pickup in the public areas. So right now, Public Works is actually on a cycle of 4 weeks to actually pick up trash within the surrounding districts. They have been a little off due to rain and the grass growing and things of that nature. But some council members actually employ people to come and clean the streets, just to kind of give an extra little bit to make sure that our streets are clean. Unfortunately, we shouldn't have to do that, but it happens. But we are trying to increase the frequency of trash pickups as far as litter and debris in the right of way. All right. Y'all got a lot of questions. Can we increase frequency of cutting grass? They are on a 4-week schedule. So they are actually on a schedule to make sure that we have 7 districts that we rotate through. Can we find businesses that don't keep their properties clean and free of trash? So Brian, that's a question for you.
Absolutely. We do and we can. So again, we'd like to ask you to input that in C-Click Fix or contact. I'm trying to get to the chat, by the way, to input my email address. So any way you want to contact us, C-Click Fix or via email, let us know what you're seeing out there. So we do require that they clean up on a regular basis, and we'll cite them if they don't.
You're welcome, BK. Definitely. Thank you for addressing sanitation. It is a big, big issue. A lot of us have, including myself, missed our pickups within the past 2 weeks. So I'm right here with you all, feeling the pain. So we are really ready to move towards that model. I don't know how many other people are, but the city is doing their best to move to one single provider model. Any other questions, Joy, do you see? Any more? I want to make sure we answered everybody's questions. All right. Well, Brian, looks like you off the hook now.
All right. Y'all gonna be off easy. So hey, I couldn't put it in the chat, but please take down my email address. I love to hope we get back to normal. I love to hope we do it face to face the next time we do one of these meetings. But I would love to be able to talk with everybody and exchange greetings. But my email address is Brian, and that's Brian, BRIAN .Morris, MORRIS at City of South Fulton, GA.gov. Brian.Morris at City of South Fulton, GA.gov. So any specific questions, I'd like to circle back on the Enon blighted property, the West Stubbs, the Cascade Palmetto Party House. So please send me any information you have on those, and I'd like to research that and get that back to you, as well as any other individual questions that you may have on the property. Please send that to me so we can discuss that in detail. So.
Absolutely. So definitely thank you for taking the time out. I do see one other question from BK. Camp Creek grass in the center of the road is terrible. It has recently been cut, but some could use some beautifications. What can we do? So Camp Creek Parkway is definitely, it is a state highway. We do have some access to the right of way, and we try to get some things done. But as far as beautification projects, you all know that is not sidewalks. There's guardrails that are being placed in the middle of Camp Creek Parkway to prevent a lot of the violent deaths. So make sure you tell your neighbors, because I'm still getting questions about whether or not it's a sidewalk, but it's not a sidewalk. Again, they're putting the guardrails up. And a lot of that, I'm actually emailing the state now to figure out what is the timeline to get that done, because it does look actually a little bad, with the trees and things of that nature. So we're ready for some landscaping. So again, our next series, will there be a vote on who gets the trash pickup contract? They go through an RFP process, so they have to meet certain criteria, but that is what the case is. So haulers will actually petition to participate in that process and meet the qualifications of the city. And then from that, we'll make a decision on who the contract will be awarded to. But I hear you. So we will have our next chat, Joy, will be on the 25th, which is Friday. We will be with the police department. We will be talking about a safer South Fulton. Letting you know all the things that are happening in the city of South Fulton, the good, the bad, and the ugly, but also the great. So again, I would love for you all to make sure that you come back and participate. It's actually on Thursday, my bad. Thursday, the 24th. Thursday, the 24th, we will be having that. So follow my emails and let me know, again, some of the signs and things that you have issues with. Make sure you put it in C-Click Fix. That will be addressed ASAP, and they have been very diligent about making sure that it gets done. So as of right now, that is your source of getting the complaints and things in the system so you can get them addressed. Okay. I want to thank you, Mr. Morris, and your team. Did you have anything else you wanted to say?
No, I just wanted, if you allow me just to say thank you for allowing me to come on and for all the great work you do. And thank the District 2 residents just for the great questions and the feedback. Look forward to answering any questions you all may have. So thank you.
Breaking the code. Make sure you have them come out to your HOA meetings as well, because this is a ongoing process to really learn about how code enforcement impacts you and your community. So again, thank you all and have a wonderful night.